Okay, in this video, we're going to set up our virtual environment. And like I said in the last video, a virtual environment lets us create sort of a little walled garden inside of our computer, a little section that's sort of set aside, and it allows us to install different things and use different tools and play around in a safe environment. It also allows us to use different versions of things. So if we wanted to use a different version of Python for some reason, we could do it inside of our virtual environment much easier than installing it on our main computer. So to do that, and also to do many sort of Django terminal type things in the future, we need a terminal. If you're on a Linux or a Mac, you'll use the terminal that comes with Linux or Mac. If you're on a Windows machine, we're going to use something called PowerShell. So go to your Windows Start menu. You probably can't see it. It's off to the side of the screen, but just type in PowerShell, all one word, and you see right up here, you can kind of see it, and right click on this. And the first time we do this, we need to run this as administrator. We don't really need to in the future, but the first time we should. So if you right click on it, you should see this run as administrator. Go ahead and do that. You'll get a little prompt, click yes. And here we have the PowerShell. So this acts very much like a Linux terminal. Now, Windows also has something called a command line. If you go to the Windows Start menu and type in CMD, you'll get this command prompt. And it looks similar. It's dark colored where the other one is blue. But this is more of an old sort of DOS throwback. You could use this, but we're not going to, because this doesn't use Linux type commands or Mac type commands, whereas the PowerShell does. So it'll allow us to, if you're on a Mac, you should be able to follow along with what I do with just a couple of little changes. So the very first time we open up this PowerShell as administrator, we need to do something. We need to type set-execution policy. All one word, capitalize set, capitalize E in execution, capitalize P in policy, and then do a space, and then type in unrestricted. And it asks, would you like to change? Type yes. And what that does is it allows us to run programs in an unrestricted manner. That's just what we want to do. Not a big deal, but we need to do that one time. Now we can come over here and type in python-v, and it should tell us we have Python installed. We can type in pip freeze. And this tells us, well, I'm getting my antivirus warning. It's scanning to make sure this is okay, and it is. Your computer may or may not do that. This shows all of the things that are installed with Python. Now, this Virtualenv is important, and you probably don't have this. In fact, you probably don't have most of these things, and that's perfectly fine, but that's just sort of an interesting way to see what's on your computer at the moment. So I'm gonna clear the screen, and let's create a new directory. So I'm gonna type in mkdir, stands for make directory. And let's put it in the C drive, and let's call it Django, I don't know, stuff. It really doesn't matter. And hit enter, and that has been created. Now we can move into that directory by typing cd c:\Django stuff. And you can see now we're in that directory. If I type ls, you can see to list the stuff in the directory, there's nothing in there. So now we want to install virtual environment, which is the thing we're going to use to create our virtual environments. So to do that, we type in pip install virtualenv. And mine says it's already been installed because it has. Yours may give you a prompt saying, are you sure? Click yes and do that. And so now we're good to go. So if we ls, there's nothing in there. So now we need to tell our computer to create a virtual environment in this directory, this Django stuff directory. And to do that, we just type in virtualenv and then the period. The period stands for do it right here in this directory, since we're already in the Django stuff directory. So if we do that, it's doing its thing, it's installing some stuff, and it's done. So now if we ls to see what's in this directory, we can see there's all kinds of stuff in there. So that's pretty cool. And if we pip freeze, we should still get that same list as before. That's good. Okay, so we clear the screen, ls one more time. These are the things in our virtual environment. So we need to now turn on our virtual environment. And you see this scripts directory, we use that to turn on our virtual environment. And to do that on a Windows machine, you just type /scripts/activate. And boom, now we have created and are running a virtual environment. And you can tell because it says in this directory, this Django stuff, it has these parentheses around it. That tells us that the virtual environment has been activated. And we can turn it off again by typing deactivate. And boom, see, those things are now gone. We can redo it. Now, if you're on a Linux or a Mac, the command is, I believe, source bin /activate. I believe. So if you're on a Linux or a Mac, that will turn your virtual environment on. If not, you can Google it and it's something like that. So we are now ready to go. We've got our virtual environment installed. We've got it set up. So one last thing, now we can go pip freeze, and now my antivirus is doing its thing again. Yours may or may not do that, no big deal. And you can see, boom, nothing happened. There was no long list of things because this is a new virtual environment. There's nothing in it yet. We haven't installed anything in it yet. So when we type pip freeze to see all the stuff that's been installed, that whole list has disappeared because there's nothing in there. So that's really cool. That's going to allow us to install the things we need moving forward and be really neat. So in the next video, we'll go ahead and install Django and get started.